What could go wrong on live TV? A lot more than you might imagine. Get ready to laugh and cringe at the 15 most epic celebrity blunders. From unfortunate comments to on-air accidents, we guarantee you won't believe what these stars were capable of. Let's watch it. It's fascinating. Will Smith. Look, if he weren't the talented actor he is and hadn't played such iconic roles throughout his career, I honestly think he wouldn't have been able to recover from this embarrassing live incident. Even today, his career is still wobbling after this display of, let's say, spontaneous boxing skills. Here's how it went down. In March 2022, during the 94th Academy Awards, Chris Rock was presenting the award for Best Documentary, and, as is his style, made some sharp jokes about the attendees. However, this time he touched on a sensitive topic, joking about Jada's shaved head, unaware that she suffers from alopecia, a personal issue for her. Additionally, the couple was going through a marital crisis due to infidelity, and their relationship was on the brink of divorce. If you paid attention, they were sitting a bit apart that night. Will initially laughed, but when he saw his wife wasn't taking it well, his attitude shifted. He walked up to the stage, slapped Chris Rock, and returned to his seat shouting the now famous line,
"Keep my wife's name out your f***ing mouth!"
Chris had unknowingly hit a vulnerable spot, and really anyone can be dangerous when they feel attacked at a moment of fragility. The most awkward part was that later that night, Will won the Oscar for Best Actor for King Richard. But it was too late. He had ruined the moment. Although he gave an emotional speech apologizing to the Academy and his fellow nominees, he did not mention Chris Rock. Days later, Will apologized to the comedian on social media, but the damage was done. The Academy sanctioned him, banning him from attending their events for 10 years. Iggy Azalea. Some music careers have an expiration date. Ideally, you want to have several albums that mark your journey, but not all artists are meant to last. Some only manage a couple of hit songs, and that's when the problems start. When those songs lose popularity, success slips away like sand through your fingers. This is what happened to Iggy Azalea, an Australian rapper who rose to fame in 2014 with hits like Fancy and Black Widow, only to suffer a steep decline shortly after. Throughout her career, she faced various conflicts on social media, which negatively impacted her image. In 2015, after winning the Billboard Award for Best Rap Song for Fancy, she faced harsh criticism from other rappers and the public, sparking online exchanges that worsened her reputation. Her public disputes, like her confrontation with Azealia Banks and other artists, fueled negative perceptions about her. Instead of focusing on her music, Iggy seemed more interested in controversies, which affected her credibility as an artist. She also had issues with her record label, Island Records, due to disagreements about the direction of her music, hindering the promotion of her projects. She didn't even know where her music career was headed. Ultimately, her controversies began to affect her live performances, which were disappointing, like the one we'll hear next. Her performance made no sense and lacked coherence, and many of her later performances were like that. After leaving Island Records, she attempted a comeback as an independent artist in 2019 with the album In My Defense, but it didn't have the desired impact. Although she made several efforts to bounce back, her music failed to connect with a wider audience. She also tried her luck outside of music, including on OnlyFans, but these initiatives didn't revitalize her music career. Yikes, that was uncomfortable. It would have been better to retire after releasing Fancy. Britney Spears. What we're seeing here is the beginning of the end of Britney Spears' career. In the 90s, the pop princess had a meteoric rise, becoming one of the biggest names in the entire music industry. However, as is often the case with those who reach superstardom at a very young age, fame took a terrible toll on her, and by the 2000s, the pop princess was practically fed up with the life of a superstar, a fact painfully evident during her disastrous performance at the 2007 MTV Video Music Awards. This event, which was supposed to mark her triumphant return to the stage after years of personal and professional struggles, ended up being a widely criticized disaster. While singing Gimme More, Britney barely executed any dance moves and seemed to struggle to keep up with the choreography. Additionally, her lip-syncing was uneven, and at times she appeared uncoordinated, leading many to criticize her effort and preparation for the event. Cameras caught some audience members, including other artists, reacting with surprise and confusion at what they were witnessing. The performance was met with an immediate onslaught of criticism. Media outlets and industry commentators described her act as a disaster, and thankfully, social media wasn't quite what it is today. It's important to understand that in 2007, Britney was dealing with a multitude of personal issues. Her private life had become a public topic of debate, and paparazzi followed her constantly, documenting her every move. She was fighting legal battles over custody of her children and her divorce, and her erratic behavior had been captured by sensationalist media, making her the target of mockery and speculation. Sources close to her stated that following the VMA fiasco, she was not fully prepared to return to the stage and was struggling with emotional and confidence issues. Reports also indicated that she had been influenced by people around her to go through with the performance despite her evident discomfort and lack of preparation. In the end, this event marked the slow decline of her career. And to be honest, Britney has done more than enough for the pop world. Let her live. Janet Jackson, have you ever had that nightmare of being naked in the middle of a class or at work? Janet Jackson experienced something similar, but during the Super Bowl halftime show, while the eyes of the entire country were on her. What a horror. The saddest part is that she was treated poorly for something that wasn't her fault. We're talking about the infamous wardrobe malfunction incident that occurred during the 2004 Super Bowl when Janet and Justin Timberlake shared the stage. This event left an indelible mark on pop culture and had significant repercussions for Jackson's career, the entertainment industry, and television censorship policies. At the end of the performance, Justin joined Janet to perform "Rock Your Body." In the final seconds of the song, as Justin was singing, he tore part of her wardrobe, briefly revealing her right breast on live television. The incident was viewed by over 140 million viewers, and the reaction was immediate. Within hours, the Super Bowl and Janet Jackson became hot topics in all media, with more than 500,000 complaints filed with the Federal Communications Commission, deeming the incident inappropriate for family viewing, even though it was an accident. Both artists claimed it was an accident and attributed it to a wardrobe malfunction. Justin's intention was for only part of Janet's bustier to be revealed, leaving her bra underneath visible. But the move exposed more than expected. The truly unfair part is that the incident had a disproportionately negative impact on Janet's career, as she faced fierce criticism from both the media and the public, despite being the victim of the accident. CBS, which aired the Super Bowl, banned her from the Grammys that year, even though she was scheduled to perform and receive a tribute. Some radio stations also stopped playing her music, and her subsequent albums struggled with promotion and sales. Interestingly, Justin Timberlake emerged relatively unscathed from the scandal, despite being the cause of it. Now that's what you call double standards. This incident also forever changed the regulation of live television in the United States. The FCC imposed a record fine of $550,000 on CBS for Jackson's accidental exposure, but the fine was overturned in court in 2011. Although the singer initially issued public apologies, she later expressed regret for apologizing, as she felt the treatment she received was unjust. She was the victim. They should have held Timberlake accountable, not her. However, there is light at the end of the tunnel, as Janet Jackson was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. So while the incident affected her career, it didn't completely end it. Sinead O'Connor. The song we just heard is the cover of "Nothing Compares to You" by Irish singer Sinead O'Connor, and it was one of the most successful songs of the 90s, becoming an international hit and launching her into stardom. But of course, the fact that her name is no longer widely recognized might give you an idea of what happened to her after that super hit. You see, the Irish artist burst onto the music scene in the late 80s with her debut album, The Lion and the Cobra, which was well received by critics and marked her arrival as an alternative artist with a raw and emotional vocal style. Then, in 1990, came her second album, I Do Not Want What I Haven't Got, which included her iconic rendition of Prince's song, Nothing Compares to You. The song became a global success, and O'Connor was acclaimed for her heartfelt performance and distinctive image, which broke traditional standards of femininity in pop music. With her shaved head and defiant demeanor, O'Connor quickly became an international star. However, that defiant approach would turn out to be her Achilles heel. The international fame certainly went to her head, and the singer believed her rise as a superstar was the perfect opportunity to launch her political struggles. This ended in disaster because when she was invited to Saturday Night Live, she staged a rather strange protest. During her performance, while singing an a cappella version of Bob Marley's War, O'Connor changed the original lyrics to denounce abuse within the Catholic Church. At the end of the song, she shocked everyone by holding up a photo of Pope John Paul II and tearing it to shreds while saying, "Fight the real enemy." All of this happened live on television. This act was an open protest against the abuses covered up by the Catholic Church, an institution O'Connor fervently criticized. The impact on the singer's career was immediate and devastating. Although her act was a valid political and social critique, many viewed it as disrespectful and provocative. In the days that followed, she was widely condemned by the media, religious figures, politicians, and the general public. The negative reaction was particularly strong in the United States, where the performance generated outrage and boycotts of her music. Her reputation suffered an almost irreversible blow, and although some defended her bravery in addressing such a sensitive topic, her public image was deeply damaged. Although she continued to release albums and create music, the support she had previously enjoyed from major record labels and radio stations dwindled drastically. Steve Harvey, the charismatic host of Family Feud, became an iconic figure in American television thanks to his humor and ability to connect with the audience. However, his name will be forever linked to one of the most embarrassing moments in beauty pageant history, the incorrect crowning of Miss Universe 2015. That night, before millions of viewers, Harvey made an unexpected mistake. When announcing the winner, he read the name of Miss Colombia as the new Miss Universe. The confusion caused chaos on stage, with Miss Colombia celebrating her victory and Miss Philippines, the actual winner, visibly surprised. Fortunately, Harvey proved to be a man of principles and took full responsibility for the error. Immediately after the show, he publicly apologized to both Miss Colombia and Miss Philippines, saying he had made a human mistake when reading the results card. Despite the apologies, the damage was already done. Ariadna Gutierrez, who had experienced the slip-up firsthand, described the incident as one of the most difficult moments of her life. Although she later adopted a more conciliatory attitude, the pain of being crowned and then stripped of her title in front of millions of viewers remained etched in her memory. Social media exploded with memes and comments mocking the host, who, aware of the magnitude of his mistake, publicly apologized several times, taking full responsibility. However, the damage was already done. The image of a flawless host had been tarnished. Despite this incident, Steve Harvey demonstrated a remarkable ability to overcome adversity. He continued to host the Miss Universe pageant in subsequent years and became an even more popular figure, partly due to his ability to laugh at himself and turn the error into an anecdote. Robin Thicke, with his catchy song Blurred Lines, he seemed destined to become one of the great stars of pop. However, his meteoric rise to fame was accompanied by a series of controversies that would ultimately undermine his career. The music video for Blurred Lines was accused of sexism and exploitation, sparking an intense debate about the representation of women in the music industry. The song's lyrics, with their innuendos and ambiguous references, were viewed by many as an apology for abuse. Thicke's performance at the 2013 VMAs alongside Miley Cyrus, marked by her provocative antics, only served to worsen his image. Public opinion began to see him as an opportunistic artist lacking values. After the success of Blurred Lines, his marriage to Paula Patton dissolved. The album Paula, dedicated to winning back his ex-wife, was a commercial failure and received negative reviews. Additionally, the plagiarism lawsuit brought by Marvin Gaye's family, the creator of Got to Give It Up, which inspired Blurred Lines, cost Thicke a multi-million-dollar settlement, effectively ending his music career. John Travolta and Idina Menzel. At the 2014 Oscars, John Travolta made a blunder while presenting singer and actress Idina Menzel, who was set to perform Let It Go from the movie Frozen. This song had gained enormous popularity and was nominated for the Oscar for Best Original Song. Idina, famous for her powerful voice and her Broadway career, was one of the most anticipated performances of the night. When the moment came to introduce her, Travolta made an unexpected mistake. Instead of announcing her correctly, he called her Adele Dazeem, a made-up name that bore no resemblance to the singers. Although the name Idina is not the most common, Adele Dazeem has no phonetic connection. The audience reacted with confusion and surprise. However, Idina maintained her composure and delivered a flawless performance of Let It Go, despite the incorrect introduction. Within minutes, Adele Dazeem went viral on social media, generating memes and jokes, while Travolta appeared embarrassed and admitted his mistake shortly after the ceremony. In a later interview, he explained that he had experienced a moment of confusion due to the pronunciation of names on the teleprompter, as just before going on stage, an assistant had changed how he was supposed to pronounce it, completely disorienting him. Despite his explanation, the incident became a cultural phenomenon. Travolta showed good humor about it in the following days and joked in various interviews. But Idina didn't hold back. At the next Oscars, she humorously referenced the mistake, introducing Travolta as Glom Gazingo before they both appeared on stage together, while the actor publicly apologized to her for the incident. In the end, it was a genuine mistake, and the careers of both actors were not negatively affected. However, the blunder quickly became an iconic and funny moment in Oscars history. Mariah Carey. She's one of those people who, if she wanted to, could not work a single day for the rest of her life and still have more money than you and I will earn in our entire lifetimes. I mean, just from the royalties of All I Want for Christmas Is You, year after year, she rakes in millions. But the truth is, she has let her professionalism slip a bit, as we saw in the New Year's show in Times Square in 2016, which became one of the most memorable disasters in live television, marking an awkward moment in the career of one of the most iconic divas in music. The singer, known for her big hits and diva image, performed before millions of viewers in a show that promised to be unforgettable. However, technical problems completely ruined the performance. Due to sound system failures, Mariah Carey could not hear her own voice and was forced to improvise for much of her presentation. The visibly uncomfortable and frustrated singer tried to carry on with the show, but the situation was untenable. Seriously, all that "the show must go on" didn't matter to her at all. The situation worsened when she remained silent for long parts of the performance, allowing the playback to fill the gaps. The incident generated a lot of memes and sarcastic comments on social media. Many criticized Mariah Carey for her lack of professionalism and for not being able to overcome the technical problems. However, others defended the singer, arguing that the sound issues were beyond her control and that she couldn't be blamed for a technical failure. But well, despite everything, Mariah's career continued as if nothing had happened, because by this point, she's too big to fall. Fergie. The Black Eyed Peas were super popular when I was a teenager in the 2000s, and I have to admit that during that decade and even into the early 2010s, they were releasing super popular and catchy songs all the time, so they had talent. But, sadly, the band members really faded once the group split up, and this is perhaps the most uncomfortable example of that. Fergie, the former lead singer, will go down in history for a reason she surely didn't want: her controversial rendition of the U.S. national anthem during the NBA All-Star Game in 2018. The singer, known for her versatile vocal style and bold musical proposals, decided to give a radical twist to one of the world's most iconic anthems, opting for a jazzy and sensual version that left many viewers bewildered. Fergie's choice to transform the anthem into a sensual ballad was a bold decision that undoubtedly aimed to showcase her versatility as an artist. However, the audience's reaction was overwhelmingly negative. Social media was flooded with memes, criticisms, and comments mocking her performance. While during the live broadcast, cameras captured several NBA players, such as Draymond Green and Stephen Curry, trying to hold back their laughter. The controversy generated by her performance highlighted the thin line between creativity and disrespect. While artistic freedom is a fundamental value, some acts can cross boundaries and offend a large number of people. In this case, Fergie's decision to reinterpret the anthem in such a radical way was perceived by many as a lack of respect for a national symbol. After the avalanche of criticism, Fergie issued a public apology the day after the event. In her statement, she said she has always felt honored and proud to sing the national anthem, and that night she wanted to try something special for the NBA. Although the performance became a subject of ridicule, it did not permanently damage Fergie's career. Brian Williams. Lies have short legs, and this was proven by host Brian Williams. Before the scandal, he had a distinguished career as a journalist and news anchor in the United States. He started as a local reporter and then rose to national prominence, eventually becoming one of the leading faces of NBC News. In 2004, he succeeded Tom Brokaw as anchor of NBC Nightly News, the highest-rated evening news program in the U.S., solidifying his status as one of the most trusted voices in television news. Now, the scandal that shattered Williams's career began with a story he had told on multiple occasions about his experience in the Iraq War in 2003, as before becoming a journalist, he was a soldier who served during the war. In various interviews and on his show, he claimed to have been aboard a helicopter that was hit by an RPG missile and forced to land in a war zone. This story portrayed him as a direct witness to danger in the battlefield and contributed to his image as a brave journalist covering conflicts from the ground. However, in January 2015, during an appearance at a hockey memorial event, Williams told the helicopter attack story again, prompting several military veterans who had also been present on the mission in Iraq to publicly refute his version of events. The military pointed out that the helicopter Williams was on was not hit by enemy fire. Rather, it was part of a formation that arrived an hour after the attack on another helicopter. The aircraft he was in was not in direct danger. It was all a lie to make him look like a war hero. When the story was questioned, the anchor initially tried to defend himself, suggesting he had confused the details of the event. However, the evidence from the soldiers present and official records made it clear that Williams had greatly exaggerated the facts. In February 2015, he publicly apologized, admitting he had made a mistake and that in some way he had confused his participation in the incident. But come on, everyone knew he had lied on television. As a result of the scandal, NBC News decided to suspend Brian Williams in February 2015 for 6 months without pay, while an internal investigation into his statements was conducted. And this suspension marked the beginning of the end of his career as the main anchor for NBC. In June 2015, after a thorough review of other reports by Williams, NBC determined that he could not return to his position as the main anchor of the newscast. However, the network did not completely sever its relationship with him. Instead of firing him, they decided to move him to MSNBC, NBC's sister network focused on cable news. There, he took on the role of anchor for news programs and special events. But his status and visibility as the face of primetime news had vanished. Howard Dean. Do you want to know how to throw away your attempt to become President of the United States? Well, it's much simpler than you would think. It just takes one funny sound for people to stop taking you seriously. What kind of sound? Well, one like this. You see, in 2004, Dean was seen as an innovative and progressive candidate in the Democratic primaries. He had built a considerable support base, especially among younger and more liberal voters, due to his firm opposition to the Iraq War, which contrasted with the more moderate stances of other candidates. To be honest, he was one of the most innovative politicians of his time, as he was one of the first to harness the power of the internet to fundraise and mobilize supporters, positioning himself as a favorite in the primaries. Despite his strong support base and high expectations, he ended up third and decided to give a speech to rally his supporters, trying to project energy and optimism despite the setback. And this is where things get funny. During his speech, Dean attempted to motivate his supporters by listing the states where he still intended to compete and win despite the poor outcome in Iowa. It was after that enumeration that Dean let out a long, almost shrill, and undeniably funny scream. And well, the media didn't waste a second on the Dean scream. It was replayed over and over on news channels and comedy shows as a comedic curiosity, taken out of context. In many of these broadcasts, the scream was isolated from the rest of the speech, making it seem even stranger and out of place, greatly diminishing Dean's seriousness as a public figure. He went from being a serious presidential candidate to being a meme. After this incident, he suffered defeats in the subsequent primaries, and his position as a favorite faded in favor of John Kerry, who eventually won the Democratic nomination. And it's sad if you think about it. The man was not a bad candidate at all. It's just that the media turned a funny sound into a weapon that basically stopped his career in its tracks. I wonder what would have happened if people hadn't heard the scream. Paula Deen. Some of the celebrities we consider the most charismatic, pleasant, and even sweet may have a particularly monstrous background. And when it comes to light, it's clear that their careers collapse in no time. And that's exactly what happened with the popular television chef Paula Deen. You see, she was one of the most influential figures in the world of televised gastronomy in the United States. She started her career running a catering service that eventually expanded into a successful restaurant. Her Southern cooking style, based on traditional recipes and focused on comfort food, quickly gained popularity. In 1999, her rising fame led her to appear on cooking shows, and in 2002, she got her own show on Food Network called Paula's Home Cooking, which was a huge success, solidifying her status as a channel star. She also launched several cookbooks, food products, and even magazines. But behind all that charm lurked terrible things. In 2013, a lawsuit was brought to light by Lisa Jackson, a former manager of one of Dean's restaurants. In the lawsuit, Jackson accused Paula Deen and her brother Bubba Hears of creating a hostile work environment marked by racism and harassment. During the trial, Paula admitted under oath to using extremely offensive words that we can't repeat, and revealed that she had considered holding a Southern plantation-themed wedding, where African-American employees would act as slaves. The revelations about her use of racist language and her apparent insensitivity toward the racial tensions of America's Southern past unleashed a storm of criticism in the media and on social networks. Although the chef tried to defend herself, explaining that she had used that language in the context of decades past and offered public apologies, the damage to her reputation was deep and immediate. The consequences didn't take long to manifest. After the dissemination of her testimony, Food Network announced it would not renew her contract, which meant the end of her shows on the network. This was just the beginning of a series of contract breakages, as companies and sponsors associated with Deen began to distance themselves from her. Walmart, Target, Home Depot, and Smithfield Foods cut their business relationships, pulling their products from the stores. The publisher Ballantine Books also canceled the publication of her new cookbook, which had already accumulated a considerable number of pre-orders. Paula tried several times to mitigate the impact of the scandal by making television appearances, including interviews with Matt Lauer on The Today Show, where she apologized and tried to explain her behavior. But many of these appearances were seen as insincere or poorly managed. In particular, her responses seemed hesitant, and in some cases, she appeared emotionally insincere, which didn't help repair her image with the public. Over the years, she has tried to slowly rebuild her empire with sporadic appearances and new cookbooks, but she has never regained the level of success and prominence she had before the scandal. As Grandma used to say, "We see faces, but we don't know hearts." Steven Seagal. You have to be a particularly unpleasant person for even one of the best comedy teams to make you look funny. This is exactly what happened to Steven Seagal when he was invited to Saturday Night Live. SNL has been a platform for actors to showcase their charisma and comedic skills. Most guests manage to leave a good impression, but Seagal is the exception. His appearance on April 20th, 1991 is remembered as one of the worst in the show's history, even though at the time, Steven was a huge action star thanks to movies like Above the Law and Hard to Kill. However, since that disastrous appearance, his fame only plummeted. Those who worked with him describe his attitude as that of a spoiled child. He was difficult to deal with, had a massive ego, and wouldn't accept that he had flaws, which is crucial on a show like SNL, where self-deprecating humor is essential. Comedian David Spade has recounted that Seagal didn't want to collaborate with the writers or accept suggestions. He rejected ideas for sketches because he didn't want to look ridiculous on screen, which complicated production and resulted in a very low-quality episode. Another issue was his failure to adapt to the show's satirical and absurd tone. He took everything far too seriously, ruining the jokes. He even tried to include martial arts scenes in the sketches, which made no sense in a comedy show. In an attempt to look cool, he ended up hurting other actors during rehearsals, although not seriously. The result of all this was that the episode was poorly received by both critics and audiences. His performance was seen as stiff and clumsy, and the sketches were considered boring and poorly executed. One of the few sketches that is remembered, albeit negatively, is one in which he plays a therapist who hits his patients, which was not well received due to its strange tone and lack of humor. The episode is considered one of the worst in SNL history, while Lorne Michaels, the show's producer, even said that Siegel was the worst host that Saturday Night Live has ever had. In another episode, when Nicolas Cage mentioned he feared being the worst host, Michaels joked, "No, that's Steven Seagal." After this experience, he was banned from SNL, and his career suffered the consequences, as his difficult behavior became known, and roles began to dwindle. Over time, he was relegated to a niche of low-quality action movies, becoming the laughingstock of the action film industry. A J. Clemente. Do you know any of those stories where someone gets fired on their first day of work? Well, this is one of those stories, but perhaps of a higher caliber because we're talking about one of the most important news anchors in the United States. It's the funny case of A.J. Clemente. Originally, A.J. was a news anchor for a local station in West Virginia. However, through hard work, he managed to rise to a national network where he would debut as a news anchor. Or at least that was the plan, because on his first day of work, due to a microphone mix-up, the first words he said on national television were 2 curse words, as he didn't know the mic was on. So, he welcomed the world of national news with a couple of words that would scandalize your grandmother. And the worst part is that he didn't even take the liberty to apologize, as he again didn't know he was on air, and even when told, he seemed to care little. As you can imagine, his career died right there on the same day it was supposed to start. Now tell me, which of these cases do you think is the strongest? Leave your opinion in the comments. Here are 2 options that you'll surely love.